Authors of a new report into the rental market say Australia's housing crisis is the worst it's ever been. Our reporter Danushi Dias is here in the studio to tell us more. Good morning.
What if the home you worked your entire life to own suddenly became illegal to insure? What if rising taxes, climate rules, and new compliance laws didn't just increase your bills, but quietly cornered you into selling? This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's not a distant future. And it's not just about investors or the ultra-rich. According to climate data, insurance industry warnings, and emerging policy reforms, nearly 1 in 4 Australian homes could become financially unviable within the next few years, some as early as 2026. And here's the most dangerous part. Most homeowners have no idea this is coming, because these changes aren't arriving all at once. They're arriving slowly, quietly, buried inside climate targets, tax reforms, zoning updates, and insurance fine print. By the time most people realize what's happening, they may already be trapped. This is the story of the laws, policies, and reforms that could force everyday Australians out of their homes, not by eviction, but by economics. For generations, Australians believed home ownership was the ultimate financial security. A place to raise a family, a hedge against uncertainty, a retirement plan built brick by brick. But that assumption is beginning to crack. New data referenced by climate authorities and insurance firms suggests a growing number of Australian homes are entering a danger zone. Not because of neglect, but because of external forces homeowners cannot control. Turn off this dough. The first warning sign is insurance. As climate risks intensify, insurers are reassessing where and whether they are willing to offer coverage. Flood zones, bushfire-prone regions, coastal erosion areas, places that once seemed safe are now being reclassified as high risk. For homeowners, this creates a cascading problem. Insurance premiums surge, excesses rise, coverage shrinks, and in some cases, insurers withdraw entirely. This isn't just inconvenient, it's existential. Most Australian mortgages legally require full insurance coverage. Without it, banks can demand immediate action, find coverage, repay the loan, or sell the property. What makes this especially alarming is the speed of change. Suburbs that never flooded are now considered flood-adjacent. Bushfire maps are redrawn. Climate modeling replaces lived experience. A homeowner who has never filed a claim may suddenly be told their property is too risky to insure. And insurance is only the first domino. Once a home becomes expensive or impossible to insure, its value drops. Buyers hesitate. Banks tighten lending. Selling becomes harder, unless the price is slashed. This is how homes stop being assets and start becoming liabilities. Not because the owner did anything wrong, but because the system changed around them. Australia's push toward a net zero emissions future is accelerating. And while much of the focus is on vehicles and industry, residential housing is next in line. By the middle of this decade, new standards may require homes to meet stricter energy efficiency benchmarks. These could include mandatory solar installation, improved insulation, double-glazed windows, removal of gas appliances, and full electrification. On paper, this sounds progressive. In reality, for millions of homeowners, especially those in older properties, it could be financially devastating. Retrofitting an existing home to meet future compliance standards can cost tens of thousands of dollars. And while some rebates exist, they rarely cover the full expense. Here's the catch. Non-compliant homes may face restrictions. They may become harder to sell, harder to rent, harder to insure. In some scenarios, penalties or limitations could apply to properties that fail to meet minimum standards. For homeowners on fixed incomes, retirees, single-income families, or those already stretched, this creates a brutal choice. Upgrade or exit. The green transition, while environmentally necessary, risks becoming socially regressive if costs are pushed onto individuals without adequate support. And unlike cosmetic renovations, these upgrades are not optional. They are regulatory. This transforms compliance into coercion. For decades, Australians accepted stamp duty as a painful but finite cost of buying a home. Now that model is changing. Several states are moving toward replacing stamp duty with annual land taxes. A shift that fundamentally alters the economics of home ownership. At first glance, it sounds fairer. Spread the cost over time. Lower the entry barrier for buyers. But for long-term homeowners, the implications are profound. An annual tax never ends. It rises with land values, and it applies regardless of income. This means pensioners, retirees, and low-income households could face rising bills simply because their suburb became more desirable, even if their income didn't change, even if they never planned to sell. This creates a silent pressure to liquidate. Unlike stamp duty, which you pay once, land tax is a permanent obligation, and missing payments can result in penalties, liens, or forced sales. For Australians who believed they were safe once the mortgage was paid off, this reform may come as a shock. Debt-free does not mean cost-free anymore. Another quiet force reshaping Australian housing is rezoning. As governments grapple with housing shortages and population growth, suburbs are being reassessed for higher density development. This can mean townhouses where family homes once stood, apartment blocks replacing quiet streets, infrastructure projects reshaping entire neighborhoods. For some, rezoning increases land value. For others, it destroys certainty. Banks may reassess lending. Insurance costs may rise. And in extreme cases, compulsory acquisition laws allow governments to reclaim land for public projects. While compensation is offered, it rarely accounts for relocation costs, emotional attachment, or long-term disruption. Homeowners who never intended to move may find themselves pressured by developers or policy decisions beyond their control. Ownership in these cases becomes conditional. Rental laws are also undergoing rapid transformation. Minimum standards, rent controls, vacancy taxes, and compliance requirements are being introduced to protect tenants, but they are also reshaping landlord behavior. Many small landlords are exiting the market. For them, rising interest rates, new upgrade requirements, capped returns, and vacancy penalties no longer add up. As landlords sell, supply tightens. Prices fluctuate. Entire neighborhoods can experience sudden valuation shifts. Yet this doesn't just affect investors. Owner-occupiers feel it too, through changing market dynamics, reduced equity, and increased instability. The housing ecosystem is interconnected. When one segment is pressured, the shockwaves spread. The final and most dangerous threat is insurance collapse. Climate Council data suggests a significant portion of Australian homes may become uninsurable by 2030, some much sooner. Without insurance, mortgages become vulnerable. Banks can intervene, and homeowners lose leverage. There is currently no comprehensive national safety net, which means the burden falls on individuals to absorb rising premiums, accept higher risks, or sell before the window closes. This marks a fundamental shift. Homeownership is no longer passive. It requires constant compliance, adaptation, and financial resilience. Those who fail to keep up may not be evicted, but they may still be forced out. Not by choice, not by neglect, but by a system that changed faster than they could.